Ever walk into a room full of people and instantly feel like you're watching the scene through glass? Everyone else seems to know the script, the jokes, the references, the unspoken rules, and you're just there, observing. Maybe smiling at the right moments, but feeling like you're performing belonging rather than actually experiencing it. Or maybe you've spent years trying to sand down your edges, dim your intensity, laugh at things that aren't funny, just to avoid that look. You know the one, the you're a little too much look, the you don't quite fit here look. And here's the thing nobody tells you when you're young and desperately trying to blend in. That feeling of not belonging, that sense of being slightly off-center from everyone else, it might be the most valuable thing about you. Because outsiders see things insiders miss. They innovate where others imitate. They question what everyone else accepts. So if you've ever felt like the odd one out, the misfit, the person who just doesn't get why everyone's so excited about the thing everyone's excited about, this one's for you. We're diving into the psychology of the outsider advantage. And trust me, by the end of this, you might stop trying so hard to fit in. And if you're the kind of person who's drawn to understanding the hidden patterns of human behavior, the stuff most people never think about, hit that subscribe button right now, because we go deep here, and you're exactly the type of person who'll want more. Let's start with the observer. Picture this. There's a party. Music's loud, conversations overlapping, everyone's animated and laughing. And there's one person, usually near the edges, just watching. Not awkwardly, not desperately waiting to jump in, just watching, taking it all in. Later, if you ask them about the party, they'll tell you things nobody else noticed. Who was faking enthusiasm? Which couple had tension simmering under their smiles? The exact moment the energy shifted. This is the outsider as ethnographer. They're studying the tribe they don't quite belong to. And here's the psychology. When you're not fully in the experience, when you're observing from a slight distance, your brain processes social information differently. You're not caught up in performing, in maintaining your place in the hierarchy, in managing how you're perceived, so you actually see more. Research shows that people who feel socially marginal often develop enhanced perceptual and cognitive skills. They become better at reading emotions, detecting deception, noticing patterns. It's adaptive. If you can't rely on automatic belonging, you learn to navigate by observation. The downside? Sometimes you observe so much you forget to participate. You become so good at watching life that you stop living it. So if this is you, here's the question. Are you observing because it serves you, or because you're afraid of what happens when people actually see you? Then there's the innovator. And this one's fascinating because the outsider advantage here isn't just psychological, it's practical, measurable, world-changing. Think about it. Who disrupts industries? Who challenges conventional wisdom? Who looks at the way things have always been done and says, but why? It's rarely the insider who's been rewarded for conformity their entire life. It's the person who never fully bought into the system in the first place. Steve Jobs, outsider, didn't fit the corporate mold, dropped out of college, saw computers as tools for rebels and artists, not just businesses. Oprah, outsider, black woman in an industry that didn't make space for her, built an empire by being unapologetically herself instead of shrinking to fit someone else's format. The pattern repeats across fields. Why? Because when you don't have a stake in preserving the status quo, you're free to imagine something different. Psychologists call this cognitive flexibility, the ability to think outside established frameworks. Insiders are rewarded for mastering the existing rules. Outsiders, they're free to rewrite them. But here's the catch. Innovation requires resilience, because before the world calls you a visionary, they'll call you wrong, weird, too much. And you have to be okay with that long enough for your ideas to prove themselves. So if you've ever been told you think too differently, that your ideas are too out there, maybe that's not a weakness. Maybe that's the point. But here's where it gets complicated, because not all outsider experiences are empowering. Some are just painful. Enter the wounded outsider. This is the person who didn't choose the margins, they were pushed there, bullied, excluded, rejected for being too sensitive, too smart, too different, too something. And that experience leaves marks. Sometimes it creates empathy, a deep bone-level understanding of what it feels like to be unseen, unheard, unwanted. These are the people who become therapists, advocates, artists who give voice to the voiceless. They transform their pain into purpose. But sometimes the wound doesn't heal cleanly. Sometimes it calcifies into bitterness or hypervigilance or a conviction that people fundamentally can't be trusted. The psychology here is trauma response. When belonging is withdrawn, especially early, especially repeatedly, your nervous system learns that connection is dangerous. So you protect yourself. You keep people at an arm's length. You reject them before they can reject you. And the tragedy is that the thing you most want, real connection, becomes the thing you most fear. So if this resonates, if you recognize that ache of old rejection still shaping how you show up today, here's what I want you to hear. Your sensitivity wasn't the problem. The environments that couldn't hold it were. And healing isn't about finally fitting in. It's about finding people who don't require you to shrink. Now let's talk about the quiet rebel, because some outsiders don't announce themselves. They don't make a scene. They just quietly refuse. They nod along in meetings and then do things their own way. They smile politely at family gatherings while internally rejecting every expectation placed on them. They're the ones who look conventional on the surface, but are living according to a completely different value system underneath. This is the outsider as undercover agent. They've learned that direct rebellion is exhausting, that trying to explain yourself to people who don't want to understand is futile, so they conserve their energy. They let people assume whatever they want while building a life that actually reflects who they are. The psychology here is fascinating because it's about selective authenticity. They've figured out that not every space deserves their truth, that some relationships can only handle the surface version, and that's okay. They're not being fake, they're being strategic. The risk, though, is compartmentalization. When you split yourself into the version people see and the version you actually are, you can start to lose track of which one is real, or you exhaust yourself maintaining the gap between them. So if this is your pattern, check in. Are you protecting your authentic self, or are you hiding it? And then there's the bridge builder. This might be the most evolved version of the outsider, the person who's been on the margins long enough to understand multiple worlds and now uses that to connect them. They grew up code switching between cultures, or they've lived in different countries, or they've navigated wildly different social contexts, and instead of choosing one world and rejecting the others, they become translators. They help people who would never otherwise understand each other actually see each other's humanity. This is the outsider as mediator. And the advantage here is profound because they have what researchers call bicultural competence or integrative complexity, the ability to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously without needing one to be right and the other wrong. They're comfortable with ambiguity, with nuance, with the idea that two seemingly contradictory things can both be true. In a world that's increasingly polarized, that's a superpower. But it's also lonely, because bridge builders don't fully belong to either side. They're to this for that group and to that for this group. They exist in the space between. So if this is you, if you've spent your life translating between worlds, I see you. And the loneliness of the middle, it's real. But so is the impact you make by refusing to let people stay trapped in their silos. So here's what all of this adds up to. The outsider experience isn't monolithic. It's not inherently good or bad. It's what you make of it. Some people take the pain of not belonging and let it poison them. Others take it and turn it into fuel, into art, into innovation, into empathy. The question isn't whether you fit in. The question is, what are you going to do with the clarity that comes from standing slightly outside the circle? Because that perspective, that ability to see what everyone else takes for granted, that's not a deficit. It's data. It's insight. It's the raw material for everything that matters. So which version of the outsider are you?
The observer, quietly cataloging human behavior? The innovator, too restless to accept the way things are? The wounded one, still carrying the weight of old rejections? The quiet rebel, selectively revealing your truth? Or the bridge builder, translating between worlds? Maybe you're a combination. Maybe it shifts depending on the context. Drop a comment and tell me, how has being an outsider shaped you? What have you gained from it? What does it cost you? And if this landed with you, if you felt seen in a way that matters, share it with someone else who needs to hear this. Because odds are they're out there right now trying way too hard to fit into a space that was never meant for them. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one.